always at the forefront. So they used to have pushed a PSBT transaction, the partially signed transaction. But when they pushed the update, there was no one that was integrating it. So it was the same problem. So same thing with NFC. So say people are like, say, why are you announcing it if it's not ready? It's like, we're announcing it to find partners to get ready. So it's like, it's more towards the devs. So it's a process. It never stops. I can't stop progress.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Changing the Tide. I'm your host, John Crabtree, and today I'm stoked to have the Manager of Business Development at COINKITE, cfunk, join me for the show. She has previously been in the business development side at Zebedee and recently moved over to a couple months ago to COINKITE, and so is leading the charge on business development there at COINKITE. Had NVK last fall on the show to talk a little bit about the history of COINKITE and some of their devices. They've even launched new devices to the market since that time, and are really looking for developer partners to help proliferate these into the Bitcoin network. Not the technical network itself, but the network of Bitcoin developers. And so we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about just her journey in general, also how she grew up in Africa, but is now living in Canada, and some of her thoughts on Bitcoin's digital scarcity, some of the ways that it enables freedom and prosperity for the individual worldwide. And also a really interesting thought on overall on who it is that tends to be the first to adopt Bitcoin. So what kind of mindset is needed, what kind of background potentially helps set people up for understanding Bitcoin just as more of an early adopter. So without any further ado, let's get to cfunk. Cfunk, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, super excited to have you and talk about just your move from the Lightning space, working in business development at Zebedee, to now on-chain with COINKITE.
Yes. Hey, who would have known? Who would have thought?
Yeah,
Things
like we were talking about just a second ago. The idea of going not backwards, but going from layer 2 back down to layer 1 that provides the security, the on-chain security for a Lightning network. Is exciting. I'm pumped to dive into that.
Oh, me too.
Awesome. Okay, we'll start with Amboss. So I'm looking at Amboss stats today. On the Lightning Network, there are 16,454 public nodes, and that is comprised of 81,875 channels. According to Amboss, there's now over 4,000 Bitcoin, 4,005.08 Bitcoin of capacity on the public Lightning Network. And the fees have dropped for immediate. So 8 sats per VByte if you want to send a more immediate transaction. If you want to wait a little bit longer, it's 4 sats per VByte. And then looking over at Clark Moody's Bitcoin dashboard, we are looking at almost 5,000 sats per US dollar. And we're recording at BLOCKCLOCK 742,748. And there are 16,011 reachable Bitcoin nodes, public Bitcoin nodes. And so interesting stats, and I'm excited. cfunk, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
From Zebedee.
Oh yeah, just actually a few months ago. Yes, because Zebedee, they're doing amazing things. Shout outs to the whole team at Zebedee. They're great. And they're bringing Bitcoin to video games, right? So the video game industry, especially in biz dev, not the same crowd as the Bitcoin as the Bitcoin community, right? So something amazing happened for Zebedee actually. Ben Cousins, which used to be at Lakestar, which was an investor of Zebedee, just to tell you like how much they must believe in the startup they invest. So Ben Cruzen joined the team at Zebedee, and he's leading those efforts. And he's already got the whole networks of established relationships, with those bigger firms, because the video game industry is basically just a few studios. And it's like the Bitcoin community, very knit tight. You got to know people. So yeah, I know people in Bitcoin. So that's who I've been serving since 2017, when I had like a aha moment. I was like, oh, wait a second, we can actually have hope. Thanks to this, there's actually a way out. Finally, a conceivable way to fix the money, fix the world. Um, so yeah, since that moment I understood that, I just went to help Bitcoiners specifically. So yeah, I couldn't really help Zebedee at that point. But we still say, I mean, who wouldn't love them? They're amazing. And I cannot wait to start playing GTA and get paid in Bitcoin. It's like, wow.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that was actually how you and I met. I think it was on Clubhouse last year, and you had
Ah,
Jack Everett of Thunder Games
yes,
in a,
yes, Jack. Yeah.
yeah, it was like a Sunday afternoon, for me at least. Must have been more like Sunday evening your time, but just conversation, and Jack started talking about Thunder, and I know at that time you were still working for Zebedee. So and then all of a sudden, I don't even know how I saw it, but I see that you're now biz dev at CoinKite, and you had sent me a few sats for my show on Fountain, and I was like, oh my gosh, cfunk, she's at CoinKite, we gotta talk.
Ah, okay, so that's how the invitation came about. Okay, thank you for explaining. That warms my heart.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, now that there's so much going on at CoinKite. I feel like I see a new product every day.
Right?
Rodolfo just launched his new podcast, Bitcoin.review, this morning. Um, was it like just the array of new stuff that's going on there that drew you, or what?
Ah, wow,
Tell us that
yes.
story.
Oh, I mean, what drew me is because, well, say, like many of us, I saw the job listing on bitcoinjobs.com. Shout out to bitcoinjobs.com. We love them. It's amazing to be able to separate the jobs that are like working with scammers, and like ICO people, and like the real deal, because you don't want to say something that looks bad. There's nothing worse in a resume that you worked for, like, I don't know, some ICO stuff.
Yeah.
So shout out to them. Yeah, I Crypto Mags was biz dev. No, she was actually VP of sales at CoinKite. Um, and yeah, she decided that her heart was in mining, so she moved back into mining and was looking for her replacement. So big shoes to fill. And I have like the most tremendous respect for Crypto Mags. Because I'm Canadian, say we're both women, so it's amazing. Um, it's amazing. See, when I had the interview with her, I was just happy to get to talk to her, And
Yeah.
same thing with NVK, same thing with Jack X. It's like it's a it's a true honor and privilege. It's very humbling. And do they ship? My. I mean, I can't keep up with the guys. They keep shipping. I'm like, I just wrapped my head around this, and you be shipping new products. Whoa. That's just how they roll. So just to put things in perspective, the thing that CoinKite is unbelievable. Like, it's unbelievable. It's almost like a unicorn. It's Canadian, okay? Not VC funded, created like almost 12 years ago, 11 years ago.
Mhm.
See, and Bitcoin is about the same age. And they went through being a payment processor. And just to show you where their heart truly lies in, say what really motivates them, it's when the regulations in Canada changed in a way that, wouldn't allow for payment processor to still like allow sovereignty and not just say, they just totally flipped on the cent, switched the entire business model, came up with OpenDime, cold card, the block. It's like, what is these guys? What? And yeah, doing Satoshi's work. So improbable. You know, if you'd go to Silicon Valley and explain that, they'd be like, what? You know?
Why didn't they just comply with regulations and remain a payment processor, right? That's what
Yeah,
the question would be.
ex voilà, because it just shows you where their values are. So yeah, that it's truly a work of art. It's like it's it's a labor of love. Um, and it's there's like almost a symbiotic relationship also with the end users because they use it, they give their feedback. Um, yeah, NVK Docex, they listen, you know, they regroup, and it's so amazing to witness that. It's like a seance of genius at work. It's like, whoa. So, yeah, and they ship and they reply. And so it's like the product becomes what the market needs it to be. So they don't mind shutting off an entire product. I heard NVK say that recently. He was like, yeah, maybe in 5 years we don't need wallets. How do we know? Bitcoin keeps changing.
Yeah,
See?
it's crazy. Yeah, I remember when MVK was on the show last fall. So that's session 7 for anyone who's listening, and always recommend going back to that one because we talk about CoinKite's design principles, and you get to hear it from his mouth. But then you also think like it's really interesting. You went from Zebedee, where like they've complied with some of the regulations around wallets, and there's a little bit of a login. And like for me, the state of the United States that I'm in, I can't yet get a Zebedee wallet because they're not
Nice.
ready. But with CoinKite, what's so interesting is there's never an account needed. You just interact with Bitcoin on chain in multiple different ways, like with OpenDime. Um, the private key is created, right? Just by giving it some data from one of
Mhm.
your files. And then with the cold card, you can roll your own entropy. Um, and then all these things that came out last fall and early this uh, spring with TAPSIGNER and SATSCARD, and it's just super exciting.
Yes, very much so. They're always at the forefront. So they used to have pushed a PSBT transaction, you know, the partially signed transaction. But when they pushed the update, there was no wallet that was integrating it. So it was the same problem. So same thing with NFC. So say people are like, say, why are you announcing it if it's not ready? It's like we're announcing it to find partners to get ready. So it's like it's more towards the devs. So it's a process. It's it never
Yeah.
stops. Or can't stop progress, as they say.
Yeah, I think that was on Bitcoin.review this morning. That's kind of what uh, MBK was talking about. He mentioned being at Bitcoin 2022 back in April, and how the Trezor and Ledger CEOs were talking with him, and he basically convinced them, "Oh, we should probably integrate NFC into our wallets too."
Yeah,
It's
of course, right? That's that's how ideas goes once, and that's the same thing that's gonna happen with Zebedee. As soon as it only takes one video game, you know, and as soon as the others see that the laws of the market, they will not have you just have that edge, right? Uh, so then it's just a matter of execution, you know?
mhm. Yeah. So let's go back a little bit because you talked about 2017 is when you really started to understand Bitcoin, fix the money, fix the world. Um, what was it? What were you studying at that time? What really caught your attention?
Okay, what in it, I heard about Bitcoin the year it came out in 2009. I just graduated the equivalent here of what you would call high school, going on to university then. So I was very, very curious about it, but I was like, okay, let's see what happens. It's an experiment. So I was just keeping an eye on it. And then years later, I in 2017 had totally forgotten about it. I see my friend making 3% a day. just volatility by day trading. It's like, whoa. Yeah,
Whoa.
right. At the time, whoa, now, right? It's whatever, right? Just
Yeah.
another day. I wouldn't want to day trade anymore. I like to sleep, you know? So I did that for a while, and after turning maybe $200 into 10K, which like say almost doing nothing, I was like, well, maybe there is something to this, and I start like digging into it, and I find Andreas Antonopoulos, one of the best vulgarizator. He really explains things well, and yeah, he made me understand and realize that holy moly, wait a second, we can actually have a way to opt out of the financial system, just because like I come like from a a third world country where there is no rule of law. It's like a military system, and there's no hope.
Wow.
Even the culture is all about it's just a hot mess. Where do you begin? See? And it's pretty much like that for most people that have left somewhere. Everyone feels guilty. Most people feel guilty about, even if, yeah, you meant to survive, but you always like have that feeling, say, I wish I could go back. I wish I can say not
Yeah.
not just bounce off, right? But it's the first time like when I understood what Bitcoin could, I was like, wait a second, this I can actually bring back home. There's actually hope.
That's
Uh,
incredible. Yeah, because while you're Canadian, uh, I think probably by citizenship, uh,
yes, yes,
this
yes.
this was on a different continent, right, where you grew up.
Oh, yes, yeah, right, exactly. So I grew up in a northern African country. Um, just to make people, I won't name it, the only northern African country, one of the only country in the world that has banned Bitcoin totally,
Wow.
as if they could do anything about it. It's like, yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. That's incredible. So my session 19 was with the founder of Landifa Bitcoin. So that's down in Namibia. So southern, part of Africa, right, right next to South Africa, and then just recently, Central African Republic um, signed a legal
yeah.
tender law, right? Into
I couldn't
so
believe it. Like I was like, so I like it's like I didn't want. I was like, no, it's not happening. It's not happening. It's happening. Like wow, that really struck a chord with me because like wow, I didn't say starting this 5 years ago now. I wouldn't have never thought that was possible. So the hope that it brings, like it's fun.
yeah, kind of the gradually then suddenly approach is
Oui,
it's happening.
yeah. Even say, and I believe in it. I know that it can happen, but I couldn't have possibly imagined that it would have had that level of adoption. So when we see initiative like the Lightning Network, which is just like you put it into more people's hands, right? So it's like the adoption is like, can't stop it. And that's the scaling of Bitcoin. The NFC capability with the cold card. It's like that scaling. It's that the tackling to that problem of UX and mass adoption. It's easy to ship. It's just say can produce mass and masses of it. So you have the TAPSIGNER, that's like the cold card, and for the OPENDIME you have the SATSCARD. But say it's not Lightning. Say it's still just like a bearer, but it can still be in so many people's hand. See, just like the scaling effect of it and the ease of use, because see, NFC is nothing new, but Bitcoin wasn't ready for it yet. But now it makes sense because it gives a reasonable level of security for a very easy onboarding. So like we won't be hearing the narrative, oh, cold card is hard to use. They won't be, because there'll be, you know, easy, you can just run the virtual disk mode emulator on your phone. And yes, okay, it's a spread. See, you have all those considerations, but slowly you can learn, to but at least you've done the best onboarding. Because what people don't realize, if you go into the assumption it's too difficult, and I'm gonna try easier alternative option, and you decide to compromise on security and privacy and things like that, you never know the kind of things that can happen. And the best example that happened recently here in Canada is that the truckers did not use a BTC Pay server to receive their money. See? And like nobody was able to say, nobody was thinking, oh yeah, of course they're gonna. We should have known. We should have known. Actually, now that I think about it, we should have known because, of course, after all this stuff, they pulled emergency after COVID. Say they just make up rules as they go, as they please. Say,
Right.
so, but if say you can make up whatever rule you want, if it would have been on a BTC Pay server and the stuff would have been done like in a proper way from the get go, yeah, the government would have moaned and whined all they want. They can't take that money back, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's
I,
important. Like,
I was wondering why they weren't just, passing open dimes around, and just to these truckers. Maybe they could have been taken if they could have been seized if they were on their person, and you know, but
also, who you give it to, and say you have to trust the person. Say it. I mean, say if you know the family directly, but if you want to the organization, it's like how can you trust that the person brings it to the correct fund or whatever how their organization worked.
yeah,
But why the open dime is more like a gift, I feel like, or like say it works very well as that, say, because why would somebody who gives you something want to rip you off? It's like it
right,
makes no sense.
yeah, because
Um,
the private key is on the device, so if you're giving it, it's more likely that you're not going to try to take that private key because
or,
you were going to give that Bitcoin anyway. So
or it's yeah, there's so many alternatives, but I think it's the best to always say you go with simplicity and you advance. Because I see some of the people on Twitter recommending like very mediocre solutions because it's easy. Yes, but that's also how you get wrecked. See? Because you're
yeah,
gonna just get compliant with it. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, but it's easy, and then you're just gonna forget about it. And see, and then mint gox happens. It's just,
yeah, yeah, and then you don't have access to your coins, and you're waiting 7 years, and they still haven't come, and
they'll
you'll
never.
never get them.
Is there still people that you never see your money back? Like, come on. I
Yeah.
don't. Do you think that they're gonna see their money back?
Oh, probably not. But like I'm just saying the litigation is ongoing, and bankruptcy proceedings are still happening and all that. So, but you'll
So,
never see it on NFC. So I talked with someone who he's here in the United States, and he's trying to set up like a Bitcoin Lightning fuel dispenser, or sorry, electricity dispenser for electric vehicles. And he talked to me about how um, NFC is way more um, fit for purpose for that, because like if you're scanning a QR code, the sun can get in the way, right? But like
the
if you just
sun.
yeah, so like the sun can be too bright, and so like scanning a QR code could be an issue. Whereas if you have NFC and you're able
Yeah.
to put the device close by, that doesn't come into play, because like most electrical vehicle charging stations would be outdoors. Um,
And
so
also, there's more friction. Why would you want to, even if the conditions are perfect, it's like everyone is used to just swiping their phone, swiping their card. It's like it's the less friction, most widely accessible, easy option. Um, as soon as you add no friction, you have a chance of most people going like, too hard. You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Some people have complained though, cfunk, about like security considerations. I know that the CoinKite team has responded to those, but like, what have been some of the concerns about NFC usage and security, and kind of how are you guys mitigating those concerns?
Well, good question on how they're mitigating it. I mean, it's just the nature of the thing, right? That's something I'm definitely gonna ask. I'm like, I should take notes of this question. Um, but why? It's the nature of the device. Of course, if you're gonna have it on your phone, too, it's like the whole reason why you have it air gapped is so it doesn't touch the internet. So of course, if it is on the internet, like yes, but just say, are you not going to create solutions for like where there is a need? And it's like if they are a new user, usually they tend to have smaller amounts. And it's like, yeah, I think it's reasonable to assume, when you're carrying, let's say, your real wallet with a real paper bill, um, is it so yeah, as I said, just like all the other things that I'm sorry, I'm not very coherent because I'm trying to explain it to myself as I go. But I think it's a matter of choice. Say you're not gonna be if you truly love your Bitcoin, you're not gonna just put your Bitcoin like all the majority of it at risk. But if it is for convenience, when you go at the conference, you want to pay drinks for everyone. Like, why wouldn't you put $500 on your thing, and you're gonna spend it that night? Let's say soon. And you know what? Worse, it's like at the end of the day, it's like whatever you put in there, right? It's not on your cold card. It's not in your cold storage. It's in your heart. So just, but at least it's a solution. At least you have that convenience, and it's still more secure than you using any alternative, right? So I would still prefer to do that than why.
Yeah, there's
I,
because there's issues with QR codes as well. You know, QR code generation, just in terms of like that's data being stored somewhere and
oh,
could potentially
ah,
be
ben,
accessible.
ben oui. See, I never thought of that, but yeah, in terms of that's how it generates maybe. So you have to have a database, of course.
Yeah.
Ouais.
But then the other aspect, I love what you just said because the idea is, and I think this is true of SATSCARD and TAPSIGNER, was the idea was how do we get a reasonable level of security to areas that maybe are not as far ahead in Bitcoin adoption yet, where the economies are such that spending 150 US dollar equivalent on a storage device doesn't make sense, but they're used to cards, having like a card that you just scan. Was that kind of the genesis of TAPSIGNER and
But
SATSCARD?
yeah, you're still gonna need a cold card, You're still gonna need a cold card, but like you can at least have like a different wallet for your hot spending, and then you can maybe working on integration with other like mobile phone wallets. So it's a whole network, right? So it's a except the SATS card. The SATS card is just like it's like the OpenDime, but it's an NFC, so you would just tap it. Right,
Oh,
but
that's
the tap signer is really linked to your cold card, like it goes together. And what we'd like to be able to do with the other wallets is that you could just refill your tap signer directly from the wallet. And if there are some devs out there that is like, oh my God, I want to add these capabilities and those, but white label them with my own wallet logo, that too we can do. That's like a service we offer B2B for for devs, for wallet devs, if they want to offer that to their clientele. So they could technically use it if a wallet provider is wants to integrate with us. Just holla at your girl. I'll be here, and we can offer that to the people, and then you wouldn't have to use cold card with it. You could just use that wallet.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. I guess in all of the explanations of it, I had not gotten there yet, but that's brilliant. Like
Yes.
to be able to offer that out there, like you said, into the network,
It
and
scales, right?
yeah,
That's how NVK and DocX they address the thing, because they have so many ideas for so many brilliant stuff, and it's all not all of it that is economically viable. You know, it definitely serves a purpose, but it's not all of it that you can bring to market. And actually, but the NFC capability with the way that we can actually offer this solution for a lot of partners, there's an actual, say, we can scale that, and it doesn't get harder by the volume, same input.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. Um, yeah. So now Bitcoin.review makes a lot of sense as well because it's really a way to get developers information on the latest and greatest of like how do you integrate with this. But I know also he talked about like Blue Wallet and all these other projects, and so that's also super exciting.
I'm sorry, I think it cut in and out. I just heard
Oh,
it's very
sorry.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yes.
just that's super. It's super exciting that you guys are. It's almost like entering. Okay, so there was like the business to consumer. These consumers want a hardware wallet to securely store their Bitcoin, and now it's almost B2B, business to developer, and
Ah, B2D, I like that.
yeah,
B2D. Ben oui.
yeah,
But technically,
but
they're a business, but why not?
yeah,
Coin
B2B.
that. Yeah. Well, you should coin that. We're
I
gonna
should.
give it to Jen.
um, gosh, so I can see why you're so excited to join CoinKite, and to your point too, it's really awesome. Um, like, eh, there's so many awesome Canadian Bitcoiners, you included, that have created awesome businesses, and it's really cool to see in a country like Canada, where there was a huge worldwide like focus with the trucker convoy,
Ouais.
and how was the government going to respond, to see the which we can talk about, but the to see like the Canadian Bitcoiner company ecosystem thriving, um, CoinKite, and I know Mags is doing
It's,
mining.
yeah. Oh, yes. And she's, for us Canadians, Mag is like the symbol of like we're like so it was that because so she helped with Quadriga, which was like the Canadian mint gox. So she helped. That's how like a lot of people got to know her for the first time, and she did an amazing job representing the people to the government. And the government, man, we should almost thank them. We should be like, yo, thanks Trudeau for the best freaking advice. You say there, it's like they're doing everything, to basically say, yeah, you should buy Bitcoin. So they're being as they're showing us the very reason why we can trust them with anything. It's like coming from where I come from, where like that's just business as usual, and seeing the transition now in a country that I thought was a country of rule of law, and it's just like the hypocrisies is falling so intense, and like it's just a big Bitcoin sign flashing like this is the way. It's like you want to hate the guy like Trudeau, you want to hate him, but at the same time you're like, well, thank you though.
Yeah, it's crazy because like maybe that's it, because I've been asking myself what happened in Canada, and it's probably a similar thing that's happening in the United States, but potentially some of the issue is that not enough Canadians and United States citizens and the like have lived elsewhere where rule of law doesn't apply. And so like for you, for instance, I know in Quebec it's a little bit different, maybe a little bit more like left leaning is what I've heard.
Oh
um
yeah, to say the least.
yeah. And the rest of the
Uh,
provinces in general as well. So maybe does that make a difference, you think, having some step outside of the world of Canada and see other parts of the world?
hmm I think any person that had like a early early childhood trauma is a very good contender for Bitcoin, a future Bitcoiner perhaps, because it's like you have let's say it's a gift, like say, in a lot of ways trauma is a gift. But I was listening to Lynn. I'm sorry, I forgot her last name.
Lynn
Lynn.
Alden?
Yes, Alden, exactly. A recent podcast with her, and she said, say, growing up poor, that's why like I saw the value of Bitcoin because say, like I was a, and she explains, how she grew up a single mother household and all that. It's like Yes, for and it's human psychology. A brief example outside of Bitcoin, but when there are sometimes planes um, that explode or caught on fire, but before they take off, they are still on the landing. Um, they, there has been many cases of that, and there has been studies made because we simply don't understand yet fully why do people not go out from the plane. See
Mm.
how they could survive by getting up and leaving, right? But there's one thing that they don't believe it's happening. So that's like a very, very, and so I would strongly encourage everybody who is dealing with people who say don't seem unconnected to reality. It's very, very human. Let's say the people who were on the Titanic, when they were told the Titanic was sinking, they did not believe it. Huh? Déjà,
Hmm.
that did not process because the ship was still standing. So the compute was not, even if it's like it's happening, it's getting filled with what, like we're not thinking, but we're about to, but it's not going to process. It's like a defense mechanism or something. So the people in the plane, yeah, even if like they could leave the plane and still survive because it hasn't taken off, like people would do weird things like take off their luggage, and it's like they're telling them like go go go, and some people would just sit and be completely paralyzed. And sadly, a lot of people have died by simply not by not leaving. And some people have been carried out, by their loved one. And they were interviewed after in the study to say, how come you didn't move? But
Mm.
that there's no explanation as far as science goes, except that the correlation shows that the people that did move had like early life trauma. So for all the people out there with trauma, it's a gift. you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because maybe you understand that bad things can happen. Um, I think there's a lot of people in the United States here who, because we've lived under dollar hegemony for 50 years, it's like, especially in the what they call the boomer generation, right? Because everything's gone pretty well for them. Their money has continued to go up. Their real estate holdings have gone up. Their stocks, they've seen everything go up. And when you say, yeah, the dollar is, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
There's a my my father-in-law's friend still thought as of like a year ago until I corrected him that the US dollar is still backed by gold. And I said, dude, it's been since 1971. Like you were 15 years old when you're like 60, whatever it is now, 65, 66. Isn't that crazy?
I give all old people a pass because they're my seniors. But it's ouais, tu sais, oui, ouais.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us don't know what money is, and then it's like, okay, but you just print it out of thin air. Say the government prints it out of thin air. It's like a pyramid scheme. So indeed, the one thing that was very difficult for me to grasp with Bitcoin is how can you not replicate true scarcity? I didn't
Mm.
get that for the longest time. I'm not even sure I totally grasp it yet. Because yeah, because otherwise, then other things than Bitcoin could have still like mm, the same value. But well, I don't know if you, I don't know if you know by any chance
Uh, I think I'm understanding, but what is it again? How to replicate the
the true
digital?
scarcity. Like, how come is it that the first one that created a true scarcity? How come that cannot be replicated? How come we cannot fork Bitcoin and that version would be, say, just as good?
Yeah.
Well,
Gosh, I've thought about that. One of the answers that feels compelling to me, and I haven't thought it all the way through, but one of the answers that seems compelling to me is that the first one, Bitcoin, that truly represented digital scarcity, also retains the network effect, right? Like, yeah, some users will leave. We saw that happen in the fork wars in 2017. Like, people left for BCH, and that turned into BSV, and some people left that. But like for all intents and
Like,
purposes, I
the
like
good
that
old
you're
days.
laughing about it. Yeah, I know. I try to tell some people about that, and they're like, "Why didn't you leave?" And it was like, well, it was really easy when you were paying attention to Bitcoin and the people that are trustworthy. I mean, don't give too much trust to any one person or company in the space, but you start to get an idea of who is there, who can be trusted, and who's potentially scamming. You got to always have your radar up. But then also, like, as the value continues to go up, then Lightning was built on top of it, and that was a scaling
Oh,
solution that a lot of people were flocking to as well. And so I said, well, it seems like the activation of SegWit and how that opens up Lightning Network, it seems like that's the way to just keep going. Like, let's keep going in this direction. And so the answer that seems compelling to me, I think it was Pierre Rochard who talked about how a lot of people, it might be someone else, but talked about how the digital scarcity is there, but then the other aspect of it is that it's also the network effect. So you not only have the money, but the technology network effects combined, and those just exponentially multiply. And it's hard to, once you have the network effect, it's hard to break down and win.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
But then, well, me, I was happy when BCH forked. I was like, thank you. I flipped it right back to Bitcoin. I was like,
That's what I did.
doubled my Bitcoin. Thank you. So it was so easy. I didn't like mind that at all. I was like, thank you. But I still went back to I put them all back to Bitcoin because I was like, it seemed too difficult or stuff. I was like, ah, no. I'm good where I'm at. I'm like, so Bitcoin was like the thing that assured me sleep. That's I love Rodolfo's his tag. It's a sleep baby, sleep like a baby at night technology. You can sleep on both your ears, and it's like, yeah, because it's so stressful. It's
Yeah.
so stressful dealing in Bitcoin, especially if you're day trading, if you wide amount. How many times do you check your wallet address back and forth like a freaking day,
Hmm.
with the sweat on the say everyone's it's a big matter. So yeah, the people doing DeFi and all the stuff that it never stop. It's like, yeah, you win a lot, you lose a lot. It's like it never stop. Bitcoin, it's like it's steady. It's like so
One BTC equals one BTC, right?
forever. See, well,
Yep. Yeah, it's funny because that's the other thing, that like the West used to be about savings, right? Um, so here in the States, we're going through an inflationary period, and it's obviously not. It's obviously higher than what the statistics, the government statistics, are telling us. Because I can tell you, because if I try to go buy something that's not in CPI and I compare it to last year, it's like 20 or 30% higher, or in some cases 50 to
yeah,
60% higher. And it's really funny because the last time we had this kind of inflation in the United States, first of all, CPI was a tougher metric. And second, there was more savings in the United States, and I think worldwide as well. And so it's just really interesting to see, right? Like Bitcoin, people miss Bitcoin because they're chasing yield in the new paradigm, and they're not chasing savings, which is truly what they should be looking for security, you know?
booyah. Say, yep, yep. Um, long time preference, or is that how we say? I always get mixed up. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like right, the
Yep.
marshmallows. Get two marshmallows now, or no, get two marshmallows later, or one now. It's about delaying gratification. And again, maybe people with trauma are better at, delaying gratification. At least people with discipline. I don't know about trauma. I was just trying to loop it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't quote me on that. But
Yeah.
how do you learn to delay gratification if it wasn't no
Delayed gratification. That's something that's super important. It's people with discipline, for sure.
discipline? Yeah, I don't know how does that come about? I don't know. I have no clue. Why does some people have it from the get-go, and why don't some people don't? And also, Can you learn it? Can you unlearn it? I don't know. No clue.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Ouais.
It's discipline builds on itself, right? Like you have to go through the process of, it's like a muscle. You have to go through the process of building it. So, and see results later than maybe you want to.
Yeah.
So,
I think what hurts a lot of people is when they see the all-time high in the review, you know? But if you're long enough, I think last time I saw, if you bought Bitcoin in 2013, you're 99.9% profitable by now. Okay?
wow.
Say so if you missed the, say you didn't, if you didn't sell at the top and you didn't take profit, your stash doesn't remain less big if you had no intention of spending it anyway yet. See? It doesn't remain less big. It's still the same, but it's like don't hate, see, because then they're like they harbor these feelings of resentment for something that is cyclical, and it's like, guys, quit getting depressed every 4 years. Like we're not gonna do this every 4 years for the say for the next 32 halvings. Are you serious? Like, come on, how many times do you need to know? Every 4 years it pumps, it dumps. Say it's gonna probably pump and dump less drastically, less volatility as we move into the halvings, but like it's not a reason. The price action is not a reason to just like, Bitcoin is dead and no, that's the point. It will never be dead. Everything, it's the base layer protocol. Everything could shut down, no electricity, no internet, it's still gonna work. No electricity, no, it needs electricity. No internet.
Yeah. If there's no electricity, we're all in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as there's actually electricity in one place, right? One location, it's going to be around. It's going to work.
It has to.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that maybe part of too then? Well, let's go because this is usually the time in the show where I like to like get your thoughts on how Bitcoin and Lightning enable freedom and prosperity. And we've been talking about it, but like from your vantage point, Funk, when you think through the just like how it's enabling freedom and prosperity, and you have an interesting like perspective because you've worked at a couple of worldwide companies working in Lightning and Bitcoin, right? That are probably across multiple countries, and so how do you see it enabling that freedom and prosperity specifically for individuals over and against repressive governments, corporate surveillance, and that kind of thing?
Or it gets tricky, because the blockchain is never gonna scale. Okay, that's why people are like blockchain stuff. Like it doesn't scale. It's Bitcoin, not blockchain.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna need a second layer, maybe third layer. I don't know. Some people are talking about federated chains. Say clearly there's gonna be more than one solution. I like Lightning personally. I am very happy with Lightning because, yes, in 2017, it was very, very nice to be able to finally send transactions without paying such high fees. Um, but why? But no, but Lightning, yeah, there's a way to play it and to be totally private and to not, KYC. Is that going to be the most adopted way? That especially like in developing countries, I don't know. I don't know. So they will show us by where they go to. So I know
Yeah.
in well, El Salvador clearly adopted it fully. They're full blown into Lightning and Bitcoin education. So yeah, I'm supposing because c'est ça, with Lightning also say it's like there's the Lightning protocol and then there's Lightning Labs, right? And then there are all the people working on Lightnings, and then there are all the people working on other solutions that are also other second layer two solutions. And it's like a bit like when you said, so how are we gonna know which one is the yeah the people are gonna have to the usage is gonna show us, like which one won. See, no clue how it's gonna turn out, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I mean that's a good point because you think about user adoption, like we don't know yet. We'll know when people adopt. So maybe that's also important to like why you're at CoinKite and why I would have like this is my first my show's early, but this is my first company that I've talked to twice on the podcast, like
Huh.
before anyone else. So part of the reason I push people towards CoinKite is because um, based on Bitcoin's principles, like I would like users to adopt CoinKite because it really seems like you guys build towards the ethos of Bitcoin, and um, there's no accounts required. You're interacting directly with your keys. Um, you hold those keys, you sign with those keys. And so someone else is not holding them, right? It's non custodial. So, um, anyway, that's a good point on user adoption.
I
Um,
see. And see, this is why it's so wonderful to no sales required, because the true sales department is the people. They use a product, they fall in love with it, and so they tell everyone about it. So yeah,
mhm.
and w- we can't possibly do any any sales. The product talk for themselves. So yeah, my mission is really just to listen to the feedback and just relay that information and serve and help serve whatever is the next step. So yeah, I'm very happy that you feel that way, and you refer to, at the end of the day, everyone makes their own choices. A lot of people have many different wallets, but uh, but I have to admit, there is a feeling, say, of relief of using the cold card that I've never had using any other. And it's like, yeah, it feels like coming home, like, and like it feels like a piece of art in a way. To me, I'm like, it's precious.
Yeah,
and
I
and
talked
that has
about that.
nothing to do. Pardon?
Oh, no, sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, please go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, when I talked with Rodolfo last fall, I said, it's that like 1980s, 1990s, like what I grew up in, feeling of like the computer and calculators and that aesthetic, you know. And he said, we have to show the hex, like we have to show people um, what what what's going on, behind the scenes. If you, like you said, if you um, act like the the user is stupid, um, then you've basically like prophesied that that's going to happen when you give them your product. But if you treat them as someone who can learn and grow into it, they will.
Thank you, John. You said it exactly. That's what I meant to say earlier, but you said it so much better. That's
Oh
exactly what
no,
I meant.
I've had 30 minutes to think about it, but that's the idea is like so many people hide things from users, and that introduces security risks and people get wrecked that way. So,
I'd even push it further, but in a way, I feel like at a certain point, when a company, you know, is not just because there's something about having a creator and no outside investor, There's really something different about that vibe because the 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 incentives are so aligned, There's no misalignment. So usually a huge company say they cannot ship as much, and there's big mistake. Let me tell you that I dodged one, yeah, one big bullet because a few weeks before the data ledger leak, I was about to move to Paris and work there. I almost took the job, and then a few weeks later, that thing came out, and I was like, "Whoa, dodge that bullet!" Because why those things happen? Say you love that, right? As a user, that you get on the store, it's like we don't want your data. say,
mhm.
say you can appreciate that, right? And that's because all the incentives are so aligned. There's like just one decision head versus a huge company. even BitMEX at one point, like they doxed everyone on their email list by just pressing reply all instead of reply. And we're just like, oh no, what have they
Come
done?
on.
Say, but it happens when you have like say vast businesses. Say it's very difficult to orchestrate. So in that sense, like the CoinKite is a complete unicorn in that sense. It's unheard of.
Yeah, because you can make massive amounts of money off of your customers' data, right?
Or
You
lose
could.
massive amount of money because then obviously we show where the intention is at. So say, but when you see stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, of course they got money, but I'm like, the thing that it creates, the thing that it needs to create something of that level of commitment. So it's an ongoing creative process to be like nailing at that problem and how do we solve this and how do we, it's nonstop. So yes, it makes money and say making money is a great thing. Say creating value is a great thing, but I think it comes from a way different place than anybody else in the market, honestly. And I think that
Yeah.
transpires to the community. The community, like they're a part of it.
Do you have a background in art, cfunk?
Do I have it? No.
Okay. It seems
Do
like
you?
you appreciate it. So no, I don't. But when I talked with Rodolfo last fall, he talked about how his background is art and that comes through in the products that they make. It's an artistic expression as much as a value creating one, I think. So
Okay. Man, that explains a lot. I'm like, okay, that's genius. Thank you for letting me know that.
yeah, I didn't know if he had shared that with you, but yeah, that was a revelation for me because I think there's a couple things here. Like you think about a company like CoinKite, you could make a massive amount of money off of your customers' data, but you choose not to. That's a sacrifice. Um, but it also it's a low time preference move because the amount of reputation hit that Ledger, for instance, took, or like you said, BitMEX in leaking
My-
information, that it's incalculable, right? You can't come up with a
and,
number for that.
and they didn't mean to, say. They didn't even mean to, say. But also, let me take that further because the products themselves, they could be priced much higher, especially if you look at what else is available on the market. Say it's still a very affordable option. And not only that, we don't play the stuff of Apple. You have to have our own thing. You can use any. You can get them on our store. But when you buy the MK4, it just comes with the MK4 and the instructions, some stickers, but it doesn't come with a plug because if you want to go get your own plug, it's going to work with any plug, USB-C. Say if you want to work in 9-volt battery, it's going to work with. Say it's not. So every step of the way where you say, yeah, there's an opportunity for capitalism right here, but just to show you where their mind is at, it's like, no, this is not the purpose. The purpose is to get you your self custody, your self sovereignty. We're not. Say it doesn't feel like they preying on us, like the sleazy stuff. So it's like, right? It
Hmm.
feels like there's an actual like, yeah, I feel like there's a relationship between the user base that the users like they are part of the creative process, they're an integral part because the MK1 to the MK4 that happened by say continuously being in communications with their people.
Hmm.
See? They're the marketing team, they're the sales team, they're the board of executive, it's the users.
Yeah,
Right.
it's almost in some ways it's like the Austrian school of economics, in product form because you're like Austrian school basically says that value is subjective. And so in order for you to know what value is, you have to get something out there and get feedback on it, right? Whereas the VC model is like, hey, let's get as many pre-users as possible before they even know what the product is and raise a bunch of money off of that. And, you know, this was like, hey, let's get a product in the market and let's get feedback and let's get users the right way, which is cool.
Yes, and here's how they skip the entire part of the product market fit. There is no product market fit because they answer, their own needs. See, they're like, if there's a duck X that exists and an NVK that exists, and they're both like, wow, I wish I could do this, then you bet that there's thousands of them, That's the product market fit. So by answering their own needs and then listening to the feedback, yeah, ouais, they skip a lot of steps in usual, say, classic business development and go-to-market production, but it works. It works wonderfully, and it's like I'm very delicate of not changing their balance because I'm like, if you've made it this long, I'm not gonna come here with my education on how stuff work in the business, but throw that out the way, So a lot of what I learned, I just needed to let go of that because very quickly the people let me know if they don't like the stuff that I'm doing. I did one RT campaign for a giveaway. They're like, you ain't doing that no more. It's not Rodolfo or anyone that told me not to. It's like the people, the reaction could be like, mm-mm. I'm like, okay, I heard you loud and clear, no more.
Listening to that, that's a really good clarification, both that like they actually build for their own needs, and also that like you listen to to the customer and you listen to the market, so that's cool. What are some of the big things for you, cfunk, specifically on the business development side? What are some of your big initiatives right now, things you're trying to kind of accomplish for CoinKite?
The biggest thing, is we're aiming for the NFC integration with wallet developers, right? So it's an ongoing process. I'm learning a lot, because you need to speak that jargon, that developer jargon. So that's on really the business scaling model of it. That's really going to be the big opener of doors. People are going to be extremely happy when this launch. Mm, yeah, so that's something. On the fun side of things, what NVK is working on, which is pretty much amazing, is that he's sending Bitcoin via radio. Via radio. I'm not even sure I understand half of it, like how it works. That's like, say, earlier when we said the internet could stop and Bitcoin would still work, that's exactly that. So that's like less biz dev. It's more like for the fun. It's like a fun project, but it brings a lot of enthusiasm to the team to see what he's
Yeah,
playing with. And other than that, we're trying to have more presence at the meetups because we truly believe that the meetup organizers are, say, especially the Bitcoin only meetups, they're like the best hope that newcomers can have of like say not following an influencer on Twitter, but say going to people who have been in the roller coaster, and like say, hosting meetups is a work of love. And the Bitcoin only organizers, shout out to them doing Satoshi's work out there. And we want to make sure that they have MK4s because just like you, a lot of the time they already encourage people to try and use them first, and
mhm,
to learn about them for all the benefits that it offers. And we want to make sure that they have some available to give away to raise awareness of self-custody. Um, so that's been very humbling and fun to help make that happen, and hopefully worldwide one day we'll have like CoinKite sponsored meetups. So if you are hosting a meetup, yes, please DM me. It's what?
yeah, I'm gonna have to talk with you in about a month because the yeah, I'm moving to a different place, and definitely have plans to start a meetup because it looks like there's none where I'm going. So have to start from scratch and get people excited with the right products.
Mhm.
So
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun.
yeah,
I strongly encourage you. Yeah. Well, yeah. Every town should have their own Bitcoin meetup. That would be like. See?
Yeah.
Something we can all be proud of, because sometimes you cannot be proud to be a Bitcoiner because everyone is like, oh no, I got scammed once in a Bitcoin thing. Oh no, a Bitcoiner is for this. It's not uh, good for the environment. You hear all types of stuff. But when you can have local people in your town say, no, we are Bitcoiners, we are proud, it's like it changes everything. You're like, yeah, see, told you, we're respectable citizens. So it helps bring a lot of legitimacy. Say we're not just online people. So it's very important.
Yep. That's cool. It's really, yeah, the meetups are going to spread Bitcoin more than anything, because you can not only talk about it, you can have people in, you can show them the products that interface, these products and services that interface with Bitcoin. You can, some people receive their first Bitcoin at these as well. So
And it's so funny, the next bull run, you're like, yep, I said, you start to count all the Bitcoin you gave away. And it's like, whoop, whoop. Yeah,
whoops.
it's, no, not a whoops, but you hope they spend it well. You're like, ah, sending a little thought.
Yeah, I hope that person didn't, cash out or whatever.
Yeah. uh,
But
It's
I
in their
guess,
hands once it says so, but
so I was gonna say, once it's secured with their own keys, it's no longer yours. So one last question, cfunk. I see, um, and I'm looking at the Bitcoin dot review episode 1 notes, and I see two things: SATSCHIP, which is a cool spin on like a true NFT,
Right.
and then the block clock micro.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
Anything to
so
say
cute.
about those two?
Ah, it's so cute. Yeah. Oh man, I wish I. Yeah, can't show you right now, but it's the micro is so cute. You have the regular black light, which is still going to be available, so you can still get that if you want that big look, and if you just wanted to have it like on your desk, say a tiny version, it's cute. Yeah, it's very pretty, and adorable. So yeah, I know stacking sats, but those sats, a lot of people are like, damn it, you coin kite, here's my sats. Because yeah, the cuteness is real when it's so cute like that. And yeah, the Sats chip, about the same principle as the tap signer. The reason why we've not been too loud about it, it's simply because we want to integrate with wallets. So when TAPSIGNER and SATSCARD is going to be integrated with wallets, we're going to be able to also integrate SATSCHIP. So um, up until that point, only a few people who are devs are going to be able to like say make use of it, have fun with it, and say there's nothing worse than like an announcement of an announcement, and like it takes 6 months to to ship. So we're just like we're talking about it, but mostly to grab the attention of devs that do want to integrate, and so that they can see all the possibilities that they can offer to their user base by integrating with us. So yeah, if there's wallet developers out there who think their user base are artistic and could use that, that's another thing that we can actually, produce in huge quantities for those needs and white label. Um, and once the integration is done, then we're gonna start making a lot of promo for regular users to start to onboard, and it's gonna be easier to onboard for regular mortals like myself.
Yeah, and me. Okay, actually, I said that was the last question. I promise this is the last one. Have you, the being having grown up on the African continent, have you been following a lot of the work that's been done around, like, I think it's called Kala Africa, QALA, developer um, education, and some of the things that are happening on the continent? Has that kind of been something on your radar?
Ah oui, ouais, I've heard of Cava, yes, CAVA, I think. They're on my Twitter list. I forget the but shout out to Master Gwentai, who actually pointed me to their direction. I believe that they're hosting a conference in Ghana It's going to be in November, I think, or December. So, man, Ghana is a cool country. Ghana is a cool freaking country. I would love to go, but let's see. So, Ghana culture, like, it's a good place to host a conference. Um, I I am aware of what they're doing, and very synchronistically, um, when I joined CoinKite, the very first meeting that I had with a Bitcoin organizer was Master Guantai, um, who does Bitcoin Mtani. Yeah, Bitcoin Mtani. It means Bitcoin neighborhood, and it's a resource for Africans to be able to read documentation and have education in 5 different African languages. So they
Oh,
translated the white paper. Yeah. And they're helping us translate our documentation. We're trying to, create a bit of a resellers network there. Also, yes, if there are people listening who have brick and mortar stores or stores in Europe and Asia, and that they want to have like big orders, to be able to supply, please also DM me on Twitter and we can talk. Because as much as CoinKite and ColdCard will never have an official reseller, that will never happen. We have unofficial resellers simply because the entire process is possible to not trust verify, in the sense that even if you ship from us, you're going to see and you're going to have to click to agree that this is, if it's international, it's going to go through the customs. I'd say you can go paranoid as far as you can. Say, is the delivery man also trying to mess with your thing? Say, so we have temporary evidence bag, and a lot of people want to get their devices in meetups because they don't want to deal with shipping. And yeah, that's something that would be very, very good to have in other continents. So Bitcoin Tani, Master Guantai, Kava, yeah, all those African initiatives, like I raise off my metaphorical hat to them because yes, I wish I say I'm very happy that they're there doing that. Honestly, it's very nice knowing that.
that's cool. That's cool. Can you we'll have to exchange information on Master Guantai's tweet or whatever you saw of it that it was, so that I can put it in the show notes for people
Oh,
to check out too, in
for
addition
sure.
to CoinKite stuff. So,
Hmm.
where can people find you, cfunk?
At Cypher, CYPHER, like cipher, underscore funk, like the music, not punk, FUNK. Yes.
And that's Twitter, right?
Everywhere. Twitter, Telegram, pretty much everywhere. Yeah. Reddit.
Cool. Love it. And I'll make sure to put all of CoinKite's information in the show notes as well, so we can direct people there. It has been awesome having you on, cfunk. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, John. This is fun.
Very fun. What a great session with cfunk. It was really fun to just hear her perspective, and also just the perspective of going from Lightning back to on chain, and how Bitcoin provides that on chain security that the Lightning network depends upon. I mean, your Lightning network penalty depends on you, the funds going back on chain and sending them to the person who was not being cheated. And so that penalty of losing your funds and them going forever back on the blockchain to the person that you had opened a channel with does provide a bunch of that security. But I think even more so, her conversation around people who've had trauma, in the comparison of people who did leave airplanes on the ground that had caught fire versus those who were stunned and sat in silence, comes down to a lot of their background. And that was a really fascinating conversation as it relates to Bitcoin. People might, who have adopted Bitcoin earlier, have some level of trauma from earlier in their life that they've experienced. And in her case, growing up in Africa and seeing uh, what it in that particular country that has banned Bitcoin, interestingly enough, they seeing the rule of law not be a thing there, and then moving to Canada thinking that there is supposed to be rule of law, and seeing that uh, not just with Trudeau's government, but especially with Trudeau's government over the past few years, seeing that rule of law evaporate, and for people to cheer that on in Canada, it's really fascinating. And Bitcoin just provides that interesting apolitical, um, we're not going to punish you because of a particular political stance you hold. Bitcoin doesn't do that. And so that's a really fascinating part of the conversation as well. And seeing that they are growing in their desire for developers to start developing on NFC for COLDCARD Mark IV, as well as SATSCARD and TAPSIGNER. So that's really cool, even to the point where they can white label that SATSCARD and TAPSIGNER for the company that the developer works for. And so just a really fun and exciting conversation. cfunk is great. Meeting her last year on Clubhouse via an interview with Jack Everett was really fun. And so that whole gaming space, just being there, and then coming to really the team that has built for themselves, DocHex and NVK, has built the solutions that they want, but then throwing it out into the market and hearing what the market wants in terms of iterations is really cool. And so if you haven't checked out Bitcoin.review, that's NVK's new podcast that dropped yesterday when we recorded. So that was really fun to see. And yeah, so on to the changing the tide. So this is going to be really funny. But the last person who boosted me, and the only person who boosted me in the interim, was cfunk at cipher_funk on Fountain. So she wins the 2,500 sats as well as Fountain's 50,000 sat prize for best boost or question or comment. So she just said dopeness. So thanks for that, cfunk. Super pumped to be able to send you along those sats and go I don't know, recycle them back into the podcasting 2.0 community. Just some takes on recent events. I am really fascinated. Had a conversation with my friend Nate, and Nate and I were talking, and he's a Bitcoin hodler as well. We may have a few different thoughts on certain things when it comes to it, like how much to hodl versus, does one trade? He actually has, I believe, Forex trading experience. But what's really interesting is he mentioned that leverage kills. So we were talking, crypto is very sick. And because he was talking about the CoinFlex thing, which, whoa, that was crazy. Roger Ver owes CoinFlex $47 million, refusing to pay in default. That could bring CoinFlex down. Man, can you imagine? That guy could have been set, but instead he wanted to go shitcoin. Anyway, but I just said Ponzi's continue unabated. He said crypto is very sick. I said indeed, because crypto is a scam. And he said when Bitcoin sneezes, crypto catches a cold. When crypto is dying of dysentery, Bitcoin is still shitting itself. But I said Bitcoin just has the stronger immune system. And the fact is that people saw what Bitcoin did and wanted to emulate its returns. And instead of not cashing in, they wanted to cash in. They wanted to cash in heavy instead of not cashing in as Satoshi did, just leaving the coins unspent. They wanted to cash in heavy, and they still can, because the space is completely regulated still, but probably not for much longer. He talked about leverage kills and how much more needs to unwind. What if Bitcoin does change the world but never gets above $22,000 exchange price US dollars? I said, well, still, while everything else trends towards zero. But I started talking about the idea of Bitcoin as base currency. And not only that, but also the idea of the contagion in the markets. not just in Bitcoin and then the wider cryptocurrency space, but I'm also talking about contagion just out there in the fiat world. Everything is pumped up. My wife and I just sold our home, or at least accepted an offer, our mutual on an offer with a close date in July. And what's so fascinating to me is that we missed the top in our market, in our particular market, but not by much. We caught it on the downturn. And it will be very interesting to see as the Fed tightens and the market corrects, the housing market corrects for the first time, especially in the area that I am. It is considered a tech hub. And so, what is going to happen when all that leverage unwinds? And how low are we going to go? I mean, considering that if we had gone deflationary in 2008, if we had not allowed the inflation to continue and not pumped up and artificially, when I say we, I should say the Fed. It's not we. I didn't have any hand in that decision. So taking it back, when the Fed when they should have unwound in 2008, they didn't. They doubled down. They continued to raise interest rates. Uh, that pumped up equities. Easy money continued for the big tech companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Uber, all of these things. And malinvestment was just massive. And it's just fascinating to think about the Austrians understanding that deflation can be good. But instead, the Keynesianism continued. It allowed us here in the States and other places around the world to just continue to print unabated. And so it's just fascinating to think about where we might go from here. And will Bitcoin be a part of that? I probably subscribe more to the theory, but we'll see what happens that as things unwind, if the Fed does reverse its course and drop rates again and start pumping things again, we will see a massive pump. And that may include Bitcoin. But what will probably happen there, well, I don't want to make predictions. This is not a financial advice podcast in any way, shape, or form. But I think the point to be made is that the leverage, we're getting a flushing and a cleansing of the leverage that's going on in the market. And so it's beyond time for that to happen. I think a lot of people are going to get hurt. And I don't know where Bitcoin goes from here in terms of exchange rate price. And that's why I rest really nicely on, for instance, Beautyon's concept of ethical Bitcoin that is used in the way that that Bitcoin is for what it's for. It's better than money. It can be used to transfer value across long distances and turn that value back into a good or service or money on the other side. And so I've begun to think about that, especially in terms of Lightning. So this podcast is going to continue to be a Bitcoin plus Lightning podcast, and I'm going to continue to talk about Lightning, but I'm also going to talk about the security trade-offs of having Bitcoin in cold storage, a la something CoinKite does, versus Lightning, which is a hot wallet, and there are extra security considerations to take into account. I still love it, and I think it's awesome, and we're going to focus on Lightning builders. Michael Rhee of Wavelake is coming up, and then the re-recording with Roy Scheinfeld as well. So those are coming up over the next several days. So excited to get the podcast going. Selling a home turns out is actually a rather arduous task. So in any case, really excited you came by. If you liked, please subscribe. Stream Sats. You may stream Sats for Michael Rhee of Wavelake and Roy. You can send boostograms with questions or comments for both of them. And I will read them off to Roy and ask Michael and Roy and read them off and ask them your questions, or also ask them to respond to your comments as well. But please stream Sats. It is the thing that keeps this show running. No ads or sponsors. We are completely value for value at the moment. So thanks again for listening. Until next time, stack Sats, open some channels, and make sure you stay secure. Also super important was the blow up too that happened yesterday, the same day that MVK dropped his first podcast. The Compass former CEO of Compass Mining, Whit Gibbs, resigned, and today, as I'm recording this, he now has co-founder Compass Mining on his Twitter bio. So that CEO is no longer on there. But what's interesting about that is that it happened on the same day that Nick Carter announced his company's investment in Dynamic XYZ and held this Nick versus the plebs, Nick versus the maximalists Twitter spaces. All of this is to reinforce something that's important to remember in the Bitcoin space. Bitcoin, when it was created, was not created in order to fit into the current financial system. Not only not to fit into the current financial system, but everything that supports that financial system. It's permissionless. So investing in a company that would be able to allow companies to look at someone's address and consider it risky and not accept funds from it is completely antithetical to the ethos of Bitcoin. Hosting someone's mining equipment in countries around the world in different jurisdictions and registering with those jurisdictions so that they know that what you're setting up is a Bitcoin mining farm, knowing full well that permission can be taken away from that, is antithetical to the ethos of Bitcoin. So those two things are sureties, because if you read the Bitcoin white paper and you understand what it came up in, you understand the times, the great financial crisis. In fact, let's read the white paper. Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi in at gmx.com, www.bitcoin.org. Abstract. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. Going down to the introduction. Number 1, introduction. Commerce on the internet has come to rely almost exclusively on financial institutions serving as trusted third parties to process electronic payments. While the system works well enough for most transactions, it still suffers from the inherent weaknesses of the trust-based model. Completely non-reversible transactions are not really possible, since financial institutions cannot avoid mediating disputes. The cost of mediation increases transaction costs, limiting the minimum practical transaction size and cutting off the possibility for small casual transactions. And there's a broader cost in the loss of ability to make non-reversible payments for non-reversible services. With the possibility of reversal, the need for trust spreads. Merchants must be wary of their customers, hassling them for more information than they would otherwise need. A certain percentage of fraud is accepted as unavoidable. These costs and payment uncertainties can be avoided in person by using physical currency, but no mechanism exists to make payments over a communications channel without a trusted party. What is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust, allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party. Transactions that are computationally impractical to reverse would protect sellers from fraud, and routine escrow mechanisms could easily be implemented to protect buyers. It's important to keep in mind that the point of this was the point of Bitcoin is not so that a third party can come in and decide whether or not an address is risky or whatever else they wanted to label it. And in the same way, trying to secure hash power in jurisdictions by registering with them was not the way to help with people's with people's hash power. A lot of people have lost a lot of money. And what I will say is something I just tweeted, in that there to at Bin the Carman on Twitter, Nick responded, "Sucks, I know, but you're going to have to use chain analysis, elliptic, so on and so forth for your company. Don't worry, I'll be waiting for you to call you a hypocrite when it happens." So it clearly doesn't suck because he's going to profit from it. But there are some who have stuck up for Nick for his work in making proof of work, the benefits of it, and the actual environmental impact of it, very clear, which is that it's net good. Tremendously thankful for those for those contributions, for sure. The fact is that as soon as you start to want to profit off of making people the product, which he will, it doesn't suck if he's going to profit off of these people who will have to use this service if it grows to the orders of magnitude that he's probably invested in it for. Then the people become the product. They must use that. That is the service that's available, probably one amongst very many of these address verification and analysis companies, but nonetheless. And so he was calling his critics irrelevant. But if he's investing in a company that is going to be required, and those people who are critics are now forced into it by law, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to comply, but they'll be forced into it by law to use it, then they aren't irrelevant anymore, are they? So just keep those incentives in mind as you hear from people, and look out for warning signs. One of the biggest was the Coin Stories podcast episode just from a couple weeks ago with Natalie Brunell, where he started talking about how he's not responsible for his dad's career decisions. His dad was an analyst, I believe, at the World Bank, had some affiliation with the World Bank. Well, he mentioned that he's not responsible for his dad's career choices. And while that may be true, it can't necessarily be said the same that his dad's career choices haven't been responsible for some of Nick's thinking, especially in this matter. Instead of taking an L, he doubled down and started calling out people who love Bitcoin and want to see it succeed. And that's messed up. So until there's some measure of public penitence done on his part, sad to see him go, but will not be looking to hear his opinion.